There I go. Now can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, great. So thank you very much, Zoe, for that lovely, generous introduction. I also want to thank Daniel and Planet Earth Poetry for inviting me to this launch, this virtual launch. It's great. This is one of the only opportunities that I'm having to launch this book, so it's wonderful to be able to do it. I also want to thank Wendy Dunawa and Terry Ann Carter for sponsoring this reading, and I'm going to dedicate this reading to both of them. And I think it's wonderful that they provide this kind of, I guess, generosity and sustenance for the Victoria writing poetry community. It's a really wonderful thing that they do. So thank you very much for people who provide sponsorship. One of the great silver linings of this particular reading is that I happen to read Earle Street right now on Earle Street. I'm right on Earle Street. You can't see that right now, but I know it. And it makes this reading much more poignant for me. I wrote this book called Earle Street. There it is, with an adorable, really adorable cover, maybe the cutest cover in the whole world. I think it is. And thank you, Barbara, too. And the cover was produced, sketched by a woman called Andrea Bennett. She works at Talon Books. Talon Books is the publisher for this particular book. And as you can see, maybe some of you saw that Chris is actually wearing a t-shirt with this on. We don't need to see it, Chris, it's okay. She's going to show it to us anyway. So I wrote this book. I should probably tell you why I wrote this book. A few years ago, I think I must have been even then at UVic, and we were challenged to write about our environment. I see Francis Backhouse. You'll remember Tim Lilburn asked us to write about our ecology, our environment. And I thought, you know, really, my environment is a very urban environment. I live on a street. I have pavements, sidewalks, cars, noise. That's my environment. It's not bucolic. So I started writing about my street. That was about 5 years ago, and then it developed into this book. And I'll start with the first poem that I wrote into this book. It's a 7-page poem. People are going, ah! No, I'm just going to read a few excerpts from it. The other thing about this street, Earle Street, and I guess a lot of Fairfield, is that it's been built on wetlands, very close to the ocean. Some of it has rivers and rivulets running through it, and the land has been filled, and then, you know, then streets built right on that fill, but there's still wetlands under it, and we can tell because our house actually tilts from time to time. Not that dramatically, but it does. So I'm going to read some excerpts from this poem called "This Street Is Not a River." This street is a strategy, an abode biding time, warp and weft, east to west, or perhaps walking on the diagonal, buying sockeye on sale at the mall a half block away, galvanized nails, nail brushes from the home hardware, drugs at the heart. This street is a convenience, double-edged, a place for the impermanent and for those who never leave. A rivulet runs under, a watercourse unlit by sky, a ruined Gary Oak meadow, minus the camas, minus chocolate lilies, pink shooting stars, bright yellow tips, that kind of damage, progress, the underside of. When I first moved here 12 years ago, the street was a siding, a way station between worlds, a small human procession moving at the rate of blood circulating around the human knee. Back then, everyone who walked past me had a face in skin tones of gray. They wore hell's horns on their well-salted heads, a never land in isolation. I don't know, maybe the street chose us. 2 sidewalks running parallel lines, a kind of safety, not quite solace, an island inside an island, the inside outness of this vantage point, this particular place on the globe, a mild foreboding, this bedroom window, second story, its own solitary dimension. Who's not an outsider? Its own half-light, a form of void. The house is a boat, floats. Some outsiders are more outside. Whoever abides here with me on this block, on this two-way tar track with no life-saving bumps, keeps their true thoughts inside their breast pockets. Wires caught like fishing line in the Katsura, the overstory of boulevard trees. Cars shortcut the major arterial route, heedless of the Hollywood Park located midway, a pseudo la-la land that hooks onto the main thoroughfare, which heads off towards the blue bounded sea. This street is afloat in precision and time, on a wetland of history, a nano flash. You could sink to your knees. It goes nowhere but to the heart, still breathing. A small poquetto, a gaze from the portals. Starship midway to nothing much. The next poem is about the deer population in Victoria. If you don't live in Victoria, you don't know about this and don't need to, but we now, after maybe a decade, have quite a sizable deer population in most of Victoria. And most of Victoria's citizens either hate the deer or they love the deer, or very few are in between about them. And so I've written this poem called Come the Ungulate, and I've used the style for this poem. It's after a poem by the wonderful Vancouver poet Steve Collis, who's written a very serious poem called Come the Revolution. This is not a serious poem, unless you think the deer population is a serious problem. So it's called Come the Ungulate. It's a prose poem and it's written after his poem. Come the ungulate, through the streets, the gates. Come the deer, they will, on sidewalks, small groupings. Come the doe and the fawn, families. Come the buck. Through the streets, as if there were none, they will complicate. 5 or 6, they thread through, across, ignoring the cross. They will, intersections. 3 fawns behind. They will, on the diagonal, stop signs or stoplights. Come the deer. They will, at their own. Laneways and boulevards undulate. They will regal, their pace. They will slow through cars. They will from the north. They come, laneways. They will, roads into backyards, front yards. They will, graveyards in the southern direction, as if preferring the young tops of short trees, miniatures, pear trees and cherries. They will, over fences, arrive. Come the roses, prefer. They will, yellow and red, recline. The cemetery is 200 years old. They will, overlooking the ocean, range until the ocean, lie down, as if no one, lounge between headstones. They are not ready to die. 3 bucks. They will ruminate, consume. Come the deer, out of campuses and government gardens. Come the deer, come the people, the love, come the hate. Under street lamps, weave, come the park. They will bend their dark shadowed necks under spliced overhead light. 3 deer on the grass, flower beds and hedges, antlers, charcoal gray, navy blue. They will. They could be 3 oversized hounds under the broken beam. Stillness below the 3 a.m., the window. They will, paying no attention, as if no human population, no houses. They will, their place. Come the doe, buck, come the fawn, come cougar, hunger, come evening, the night. So I started writing about the street itself and about everything that was happening on the street. And then and most of it was written from my second story bedroom window. It was a kind of lazy way to approach writing, but that's what I did. And there, right in front of me, from my window, was this wonderful tree called a katsura tree. And a katsura tree is a Japanese tree. It's very beautiful. It's a deciduous tree. And I think these trees, particular trees that are the boulevard trees for St. Charles, which is a street very close by, and for Earle Street, all were imported from Japan. So when I started writing about this particular tree, my tree as I think about it, I started writing and I decided to write in a Japanese poetic form. And the form I chose was the haibun. And I have to thank Terry Ann Carter for introducing me to this form and for teaching me everything I know about this form. A couple of elements for this form is it usually has a very long title, and it's the bulk of it is prose poetry in either square or rectangular, and it ends with a small tale of a haiku. So thank you, Terry Ann. I've written about 8 haibun to this particular tree, which you will tell that I eventually fell in love with. So this first one, I'll read you a couple, but this first one is called, in Japanese, this tree is katsura. Katsura, tree of trees, you see me through my bedroom window. Years have you watched, so close I could comb my fingers through your green hair. When I leave, you wait for me to return, sometimes for days. You are as patient as stone. In the book I'm reading, a woman will commit suicide. In some parts of Japan, this might be an act of honor, moral courage, a sense of pride. She will kneel in front of a train. In the book, she is simply weary of life. Katsura, your leaves are small lungs. You watch me with so much attention, even when your leaves fall from your branches, leaving you almost bereft. Dust bands the sky, barred owl, its own feathered cage. So I've written another poem, a few of them, but this poem is about the crows, because not only do we have deer on the street and plenty of them, we have crows on the street and plenty of them. So this poem is about the crows that we have, few populations on this street. This poem is called They Know Your Face, and we all know that now, that crows can identify people. Crows everywhere are everyday common. Their Gothic glut, their noise, piercing mammalian sleep, their claws strut, their own particular laws. The street rendered murderous, pugnacious barons, robbers in black satin coats, loosening the day's simple seams. They gather, gutter, lord and mutter, rampage, sour the clouds with uncommon complaint. Fish head and rabbit's foot, a half ham and cheddar on rye, crows swallow all, living and dead, certain shades, red, belly up on the road, rags, rotted teeth. Sidewalk toddlers, flocks of, are targets. Also hair, hats, songbirds, small trucks, eagles, cats, take home sushi in styrofoam boxes. Whatever moves, all things unmoving too. They know your heart, by heart, your thin nose, your oversized chin, how you hunch when you run for the bus in the rain. Scary, eh? Blue moon enters the street from the southeast. In this chamber, I am a goshawk, listening. There are limitations of sleep. The casement window opens up, but not wide. Lamentations lift up from the night pavement, disembodied, as if small animals, as if a midnight radio station somewhere offshore. Voices shift, off and on, one pair, then another. A call-in show from Australia, brave opinions, weather systems, a sad book made into a movie, a balloon head on the end of a string, a blue moon at the end of the street, ruminations, the report of a death, someone I'll never know. These sounds dawdle by, fading, entering the ether, the nothing, as if nothing has ever lifted itself into this room, this open window. Street life is windowed, angled right, wrecked, cornered and lined, lineated and justified left, wooden and glass, is panels of light rain and heavy, frames with leaves in a hurry, outside orientations, landscape portrait, the green of the foliage coined, quartered, seen through 6 horizontals of old mullioned glass in their hundreds, their millions, quaking, always shaking in the multifaceted wind. Sudden pieces of sky, blue horizontal, pieces of bark, sword, the piece of the morning pierced with robin sound, sure-pitched, predictable notes, that clarity, purpose, the way the jade joy, those leaves almost round, fits into these straight, upright shapes, the window allowing, fitting it in, these intimacies, the street at the right distance, far enough off and almost safe. So here's the second haibun that I'll be reading, and again, addressed, dedicated to the Katsura tree. It's called, Everyone Wants to Change the World, but How Many Help Their Neighbors? It's almost November, and your leaves have fallen to ground. What's left are the pale downy bits along the fore branches. I want to call them panicles, but that's not their name. And the view through. The view through reveals the neighbor's white house caught in the crazy twists of your crown. The hydro pole, like a sentinel, stands still, unflinching, guarding your corduroy trunk. 5 wires fastened. Hydro, telephone, thick as small wrists. High wires where birds keep the peace. Lines of power, lines of communication, imbalance. Downtown, people are spreading their sleeping bags in alcoves for the night, unlit. A man sleeps against the fence near the side of our house in the park. In the morning, he folds his blankets, leaves as though he is leaving a quiet hotel. There are multiple barriers. There is the word homeless, street people, neighbors. 56 of the world's population lives in its cities. Next year will be more. The vast, the remote, mutual isolations, the view through. The word gratitude. Every year, Katsura, you lose your sweet, rounded leaves. Bodies grow older. People move from the countryside. Cement hardens with age. Hummingbird, sea of ruby red light. Talk about impermanence. And I'll leave you with one last poem. Keep thinking I'm missing a poem I want to read you, but no. Okay, this is it. This is the last poem, and thank you all for listening. It's been great to see you all here. After breakfast comes the light. Droplets spangle the mid-panel of my bedroom window. Only the mid-panel, the rain shower that fast, precise. Beyond the window, hydro wires bisect the maple, tips thin to red. Beyond the maple, a quarter rainbow clichés the sky. The cliched sky is blue. Sun blinds, clears the sidewalk, saturates buds on the viburnum. Cars shine, chrome, doors yellow. A man leaves his house in green trousers. The street washes itself in detail, almost too much to bear. The clarity, the hopefulness of it all. White trim partitions one house from another. To say the street below approximates perfection is to engage the imperfect. To say the line of rooftops reaches out towards infinity is to pin the eye to the horizon. A white dog at the end of a purple leash, a boy in a pink hat. The desire for the original might be the original sin, wanting all things new again. And yet, who can help it? Who refuses paradise when light comes after sudden rain? Thank you very much.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was great. It was great to have you all. It was wonderful. Thank you.
That was great.
Wonderful.